All right, everyone. Welcome back to the GDFL podcast hosted by yours truly, Commissioner Andrew Korn. I am coming to you live. I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, just because with the holidays coming up, I still want to record a podcast, but don't really want to do it Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So doing it today, little treat you can maybe listen to when you're going over to your family's house or whatever your holiday plans may be. So big week of GDFL action this past week. We had two absolute bangers of playoff matchups. Even if the scores weren't necessarily close, they were still great matchups. First one I have here is Stun beating Sokol 187.52 to 150. Absolutely juggernaut of a matchup. I mean, Stun's players were all, he had a few playing on Thursday and Saturday, where Sokol's were pretty much all like the 4 p.m. Sunday night and then Monday night games. So pretty early on, Sokol had an uphill battle. I mean, JSN put up a goose egg at the first half of that Seattle game, but then ended up finishing with almost 20 fantasy points. And then, yeah, I mean, just across the board, he had a couple other big performances Saturday. I'm trying to remember who else played on Saturday here. Saquon had a 21 point game. And then, God bless me, DJ Moore also had about a 20 point game on Saturday to give Stun a pretty commanding lead going into the first maiden slate of games on Sunday. And then his players continue to put up numbers. I mean, Herbert predictably put up an extraordinary game against Dallas. Son had a big game. Pickens had a big game. Cook had a big game. Pitts had a big game. Yeah, I mean, Brissett finally came back to earth a little bit with his garbage time production. Didn't play too well. And then Javonte Williams also kind of had a meh game. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, Ash Dunn had an extraordinary week, 187.52. I'm going to fact check that now. But after Sokol put up one of the top five scoring weeks in league history, Stun did the same. This 187.52, I believe, will be the third highest total in league history. So good job, Stun. Congrats on your win. For Sokol, I mean, the first player he had play was Olave and Bryce Young, who put up a combined 50, which is a hell of a way to start when you're down this big. It's just they couldn't really keep it going. I mean, Amon-Ra didn't have a great game. Goff had a pretty good game. I don't really want to talk about that Lions game too much, but some extra touchdowns at the end there could have swayed things a little bit. And then, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, ever since that hot, like 10, 12 week stretch he had to start the season, has cooled off a bit with the Daniel Jones injury. That's always a bummer. I mean, Diggs had a big game. ETN had a good game. I mean, really, other than like, again, Amon-Ra had a pretty bad game. Jonathan Taylor's was a little below average. Warren's was meh. Travion leaving that Patriots-Ravens game early with concussion was a pretty big blow to him. I mean, it was going to be hard. I mean, like I said, Shun just put up the third highest total in league history. I mean, Sokol, that's a hard bar for Sokol to cross. I don't think Sokol's too disappointed with his team this year, though. After earning the second overall pick last year, going out there and finishing either third or fourth has to be a massive win in Sokol's book. And then the other side, I beat Mark 165.76 to 143.76. So I was actually up one going into the Monday night game, and I got a few texts from people asking me if I was going to start Kittle. And I've always been big on you, like with the league rules, you have to start 10 players. And I wasn't going to break that. I know it's the playoffs and things are different. But even with the 1 point lead, like that's a stat correction could easily sway things. Like what if one of Drake May's sacks turns into a negative rushing yards instead? That could have been enough to sway the matchup. Or if there's like let's say a reception by a player and it turns out they're going to change it to a rush. I know this is half PPR, not PPR, but again, little things like that could have been enough to sway the matchup of stat corrections. And I wanted to leave no doubt. And like I said, I've been adamant on people starting 10 players every week all season and since the league has gone on, so I didn't want to be one to break my own rules. Uh, for me, I mean, I had good weeks across the board. I mean, The one that really stands out is Chase Brown played up a 30 piece. Having a three touchdown game, I know it's against the Dolphins, but that was really the difference maker in our matchup, at least on my side. Because like I mean, looking at my scores, Kittle also having a 21-point game was nice, but everyone pretty much just played at their projections outside of Kittle and Chase Brown. So good week for me. I'm happy to be moving on to the championship again. And then for Mark, yeah, that's a tough end to a great season. Coming up just short. I mean, I predicted in the newsletter. I mean, I thought he was going to lose to Sean and not me in this round because I thought Chaz was going to win round one. But yeah, losing Mahomes, no Devontae Adams, it just kind of it was a buzzsaw at the end of his season. Or it was a buzzsaw. Like, just made, I don't know what I was exactly going for there. But yeah, I mean, looking at his, I mean, really, 143 is a good week. Like that will win you most weeks in the GDFL. Just happened not to in the playoffs. And we were live recording the podcast when Kyron Williams didn't score a touchdown and Blake Corum got it instead. I mean, Harold Fannin had a great game. Harold Fannin's quietly putting up like one of the best three or four rookie tight end seasons ever, behind what Laporta and Bowers did a few years ago. Gibbs, despite having two rushing yards, had 18 fantasy points, which is kind of crazy. I mean, Derrick Henry had a huge game. I mean, Kirk Cousins played fine. I mean, Drake London was not very good, and neither was Rico Dowdle. But I don't think I remember looking at Mark's bench. I don't think it really would have mattered. Like he put together his best lineup, and it just wasn't good enough. Like I said, my lineup pretty much everyone met or exceeded expectations, and Mark's was pretty close to doing the same as well. I mean, Harvey had a good game as well. So, quick look at what the draft order is going to be. So, remember that the 3-4 matchup is also for money. So, Sokol and Mark, you unfortunately cannot make a trade quite this week because this is still for money. Uh, I know you're technically eliminated from the championship, but third place still gets the $60 prize. So, that still matters. So, either Sokol's going to have 9 or 10, or Shu's going to have 9 or 10 with whatever happens with Mark this week. And then that also locks in beans to both 11 and 12. It just depends on who gets it. So, yeah. Final draft capital is going to look like Shrew at 2, 7, and then 9 or 10. And then Beans will have 5, 11, and 12. Is that right? I think Beans and Jake might be mixed up on this actually. I just want to double check that. 'Cause I wouldn't be shocked if I fucked up this whole time. Yeah, Beans at 6, not 5. I'm gonna make a quick change to that now. I was like, wait a second, have I been like fucking this up this whole time? I'm gonna have to check the newsletter again too to make sure that everything I put is correct. Um, yeah, I'll double check all that later. But yeah, Beans has 6, 11, and 12, not 5, 11, and 12. I'm sure I fucked that up in the newsletter. Let's see. No, I have it right in the newsletter. I just had it wrong here. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better that I wasn't just spreading out false information. Okay, so some injury roundup. Not a long list this week because I'm mostly focusing on either things that I think are going to be long term or affecting championship matchups. So I saw Javante. I didn't actually put this in my notes, but I did see Javante Williams listed as questionable. That's one to monitor for Stun. I don't really know the extent of it because I honestly didn't know he had that until I put this together and started the show. So maybe Javante Williams misses. Maybe Stun has a different lineup decision he has to make. We shall see. Jordan Mason and JJ McCarthy might both be out for Christmas. That obviously has an impact on me since I have Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson. If Jordan Mason's out, there's a good chance that Aaron Jones takes on a bigger workload on Christmas against the Lions. And then JJ McCarthy being out might impact Justin Jefferson a bit. I actually don't know if it's good or not because Brosmer was awful, but his only start was also against Seahawks defense, which is arguably the best in the league. So definitely will have some fantasy implications. George Kittle left that Monday night game last night with an ankle injury. That could be a pretty big blow to me. We'll see if he actually misses Monday night football or misses the Sunday night game against the Bears this week. Still way too early in the week to see what's going to happen, but yeah, me losing Kittle would be a pretty big blow. Quinshon Judkins had a broken leg. Uh, I think it's pretty much the same injury Scatabo has. Everything I've seen on it, it's going to be a 4 to 5 month recovery. So he should be back in time for next season and should be a full go for training camp. But that's one to monitor just in case. Something that's not really news, but the Bucks wide receiver usage this past week was really interesting to me. Like I was looking at some stats on it, and Ibuka was the wide receiver for this week. It looks like he's fallen behind in the pecking order to both Evans, Godwin, and McMillan. And it just like it's fascinating to me that this rookie season that Emeka Ibuka had is one of the most interesting rookie seasons I can probably ever I can remember. Where the first 5 weeks he was just absolutely awesome. He was wide receiver three, looks like a future star. I mean, he had insane touchdowns. That was always going to regress. But ever since then, he's just not been good. I mean, I've had him in a handful of leagues. I know Kristen Lynn's been frustrated with him. And yeah, he apparently is fourth in their depth chart right now, which I think can be a very interesting discussion for redraft next year of where do you take Emeka Egbuka. Because again, he was awesome the first 5 weeks, but then it's just not been good the last like 11 now. Yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, the Bucks offense in general has just kind of been a mess. I mean, Baker, this is something else I want to bring up is like Baker Mayfield. I wonder if like the last 2 years were his Ryan Tannehill run, where he had his moments, he played well, had a great scheme around him, had some great players around him, but then the coaches left or just with age or just being himself, like came back to earth a little bit. Definitely interesting. I mean, I know Baker's also been a little injured. It's also funny that he has that left shoulder injury, and I don't think it's a true contract year. No, I think this is a contract year for him. I think he might only have 1 year left on his deal. He might not have any years left on his deal. I'd have to check that. I don't remember seeing him when I was doing the quarterback contract stuff though. But yeah, that Bucks offense just has not been living up to their expectations and has not been good since the early half of the season. The other one I want to touch on are the Chiefs are moving to Kansas. I don't really think it's that big of a deal location wise that they're like relocating because Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri share a border. But again, they're probably moving into a dome. And I think that's something that's a bit of a bummer for me because I think one of the cool things about football is that the elements can absolutely change the game. And if they move into a dome, there's really not going to be that many outdoor teams where the elements can affect the outcome. It's pretty much just going to be Green Bay and maybe Chicago, but Chicago might move. So, I mean, we're looking at a future now where pretty much every team is playing in a climate controlled stadium. But yeah, I saw the Chiefs stadium, new stadium is going to have like 10,000 less seats is what they're projecting. And like they're moving to Kansas because they're going to have it publicly funded where these billionaire owners don't have to put nearly as much of their own money into it. I think you all know how I feel about that, so I'm not going to discuss it too much further. Yeah, big time championship coming up. The one I predicted in my newsletter, my 2 and 3 seeds in the preseason power rankings. I am against Stun. Here's the championship graphic I put up. Going through Instagram and saw Stun sitting on a rock and was like, I have a picture that's fairly similar. I'm going to put it in there as well. Big time matchup. We'll see who has what it takes to outwit, outplay, and outlast the other. Hopefully, you guys are Survivor fans. I know Stun is. So, a quick look at our starting lineups going into the week. I don't really know how accurate these projections are because I pulled this Tuesday morning. Uh, I think Stun has updated his lineup though, because I see T-Law's in there. That's another point I actually want to bring up. I owe T-Law an apology. Earlier this season, I said I wasn't necessarily a huge T-Law believer. He has been awesome these last 5 weeks. I mean, he's put the Jags in a position where they could be potentially fighting for the 1 seed. Uh, yeah, my hat's off to T-Law. I was a big time believer of him in college and coming into the league. I soured on him a bit this past year, but T-Law's been dope. Uh, yeah, I think there's a good chance that this is what Stun's final lineup ends up being. Herbert is against Houston this week. Houston's a pretty tough matchup, so I don't know if he'll be starting. I'm guessing Stun's probably gonna have BTJ bench still as well. The DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Waddle decision I think is gonna be what's most interesting. But I imagine this is what Stun's final lineup's gonna look like, assuming that Javonte Williams plays, which would be a huge loss for him because Javonte Williams plays Washington, which looks like a really good matchup on paper. Yeah, Brissett's against Cincinnati this week, so I'm not too shocked if Stun ends up going with Brissett over Herbert here. Uh, pretty good matchup for him. But yeah, looking at his match across the board, I mean, they're all pretty much good. I mean, Sutton's the one red one against the Chiefs, but they're 14th, so is it really that bad of a matchup? And JSN is kind of matchup proof. I know they have JC Horn in Carolina, so maybe it slows them down a little. We'll see though. Kyle Pitts against the Rams maybe is a tougher matchup, but for the most part, Stun's matchups look pretty good. Then for me, I have. I mean, Aaron Jones is technically questionable. He played the rest of the game on Sunday though, so I'm assuming he's probably going to play on Thursday against the Lions. I have Montgomery and Pierce on my bench. If Aaron Jones doesn't go, I'm gonna have a really interesting line decision, I think, because Montgomery only had like 3 carries this past game, and he's just not played enough. He's pretty much a touchdown or bust type of flex with like low yards and upside. So I'm not really looking to start Montgomery. I think I'd be more likely to start Alec Pierce, which feels just as dangerous because he had 1 target his first game with Rivers. I think he only had 3 last night, but of his 3 targets, 2 of them were in the end zone for touchdowns. So at least gonna have to think about it. I'm not sure if I have the stones to start Alec Pierce. Uh, I really don't have the stones to start Montgomery either. And then I know the Cowboys play on Thursday. Uh, so I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. But yeah, I have some good quarterback matchups just like Stun. I mean, yeah, Stun has Herbert or T-Law against the Colts and Brissett against the Bengals. I have Drake May against the Jets and Dak against the Commanders. Chase Brown against the Cardinals is a really good matchup. I mean, Jefferson against the Lions is a good matchup. Kittle against the Bears. Uh, Achane against the Bucks. There's some good matchups here. Some of my lesser ones are Devontae Smith against the Bills, which could be a weather game in Buffalo, and then Mike Evans against the Dolphins. Both could be a little bit of trickier matchups for me. Oh, I guess Nico Collins is against the Chargers too, which also again could pose some problems. Although who did the Chargers just face? I don't remember. I should probably know who they played last week though. And oh, they played the Cowboys. I was gonna say, and some Cowboys receivers had big games. So we'll see if Nico Collins can pop off. He was really the only player on my team not to pop, or at least have an average performance last week. But he's Nico Collins, so we'll see. Should be a great championship matchup. I mean, currently Stone is projected to beat me by 3. We'll see where these projections land once Sleeper updates them and who actually is in our starting lineups. One thing about championship week is that they play games on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So a lot of time to be sweating it out. I know last year they played the championship on 5 different days because they had those Christmas Wednesday games. So they had Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's a little bit better this year. I'm just like taking a look. My last player is Kittle on Sunday Night Football, and Stun will have Pitts on Monday Night Football. So that matchup might end up mattering. Stun has a handful of players on Thursday as well. He has Pick and Sutton and maybe Javonte on Thursday. I'll have Aaron Jones and Jefferson and Dak on Thursday. Okay, so we'll definitely have players playing throughout the week. Should be a great matchup. I'm looking forward to it. Which leads me into my special segment for this week. I'm just going to take a quick look at playoffs past and talk through what's happened and go through our league history a bit. So in 2022, Trevor and Ryan were our 1 and 2 seeds. Logan was the 3, Beans was the 4, Jake was the 5, and Chaz was the 6. In the first round that year, Beans' team was great all of that season, but then like limped into the playoffs a bit. And then Jake beat him 117 to 87. Logan and Chaz had an epic high scoring matchup where Logan squeaked it out 141 to 138. And then in the second round, Logan's run of dominance continued where he beat Ryan 156 to 139. And then Jake and Trevor had their matchup where Trevor's team put up an all-time stinker, putting up only 95.9 points. Jake put up 96.36 to come away with the win and advance to the championship. If I remember correctly, either Trevor had player playing Monday night who just did not score any points, or Jake had a player who scored like four or something, needed to win that one. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I remember Trevor was like supposed to have won pretty easily. I mean, the projections were 142 to 111, but his team just kind of came up short. Even looking at Ryan and Logan's projection, Ryan was a 25 point favorite. And, I mean, he really wasn't even that far off his projection. Logan just had a great week that week. But yeah, in the championship, Jake's team kind of limped into the championship because I remember, I mean, he doesn't really have any depth from that trade he made in the startup. It's kind of still inflicted him a little bit. I know he had Cooper Cup that year, who was out with an injury. And then JMO also didn't really play because I remember trying to trade for both Cup and JMO for him before the playoffs for Hopkins and Dalvin Cook, but he wouldn't do it. But yeah, Logan ended up beating Jake in the championship 132 to 91. If you remember, that was also the DeMar Hamlin game happened in that championship. So I think if we include that doesn't include Chase's points for Jake or Devin Singletary's points for Logan. Don't know what it ended up actually ended up being. Logan scored probably closer to 140. It was probably closer to like actually 143 to 100, but I wasn't gonna alter the score. Yeah, if Trevor's team would have just put up a respectable performance against Jake and not scoring under 100, Trevor would have been the champion that year as he finished third, beating Ryan. So yeah, Logan beat Jake in the year one championship. Logan's team was hot all playoffs. Jake's team was not, but he just got incredibly lucky with his first two matchups both being under 100 points. In 2023, I was the one seed. Ryan was two, Chaz was three, Sokol was four, Logan was five, and Mark was six. So in the first round, Chaz beat Mark 159 to 153, and then Sokol beat Logan 144 to 113 to ensure that we were going to have two new teams playing for a championship. And then in the second round, I beat Sokol 152 to 149, and Chaz beat Ryan 118 to 103. I know in my matchup versus Sokol that was I was in Florida because I remember I stayed up late to watch the Monday night game. It was a Ravens 49ers game, and Sokol had Kittle at the time and also had Debo, and he needed those two to combine for whatever the point total ended up being. And I remember watching that game and just stressing late in the game because I was only up three. And it really only took one more big play from either of them to give Sokol to win. Luckily for me, Sokol did not win, and I was able to move on to the championship. Uh, Looking at Ryan and Chaz's matchups, wow, the projections were way lower on Sleeper this year because they were both project. We were all projected around 120 each week. I don't know what was going on there. And I think 2023, Burrow. I don't know. Burrow did not play all year that year. I think that was the Jake Browning year, and that was Ryan had Sam Howell at the time too. Think that's who he probably started, unless that was when Sam Howell got benched. I don't really remember. It doesn't. It also doesn't really matter. But yeah, Chaz had it after a dominant week one. He won comfortably in week two, but it wasn't like a great playoff week for him. But then in the championship, I remember this was on New Year's Eve, 2023. I was up 16 against just Jaden Reed left. Jaden Reed had never put up 16 fantasy points in his career. And then Jaden Reed has a two touchdown game on Sunday Night Football to steal the championship away from me. I remember watching that and just having my heart just sink after he scored that second touchdown. I was just like, I can't believe I just lost a championship like this. That was a heartbreaker. Kudos to Chaz for beating me. He had a great team that year as well. I know, I think CeeDee Lamb. That was also, I think the Lions Cowboys played the night before, and CeeDee Lamb had a monstrous game against the Lions. Yeah, that was an all-time heartbreaker for me in that championship. And then Sokol beat Ryan in the third place game, 115 to 109. And then last year, Mark was our one seed. I was the two. Stun was the three. Chaz was the four. Ryan was the five. And Levi was the six. So in the 4-5 matchup, Ryan barely edged out Chaz 123 to 115. And Levi beat Stun 112 to 110. This was the matchup where Stun infamously did not start Cooper Rush against the Panthers last year and he had 17 points, and then Cooper Rush had 17, and the receiver he started put up a zero piece. I think it was Waddle or might have been Judy or Cedric Tillman. I can't remember exactly who he started over him. But yeah, Stun famously did not start his quarterback that week because he didn't want to have to decide between his receivers, which let Levi move on to the next round where he faced Mark. And Levi beat Mark 159 to 153 for the second straight year. Mark put up 153 points, enough to win most playoff matchups, but not that one. Lost 159, 153 to Levi. And then I beat Ryan 156 to 132. I know in my playoff matchup with Ryan was actually I was a 26 point favorite, it looks like. But Ryan had actually kept it close with me, like, and actually was like kind of favored most of the day until some late touchdowns by Achane and Jefferson was enough for me to pull away late. And then in the championship, my team had an epic collapse. I didn't start Devontae Smith, who scored 27 points, which still would not have been enough for me to win a championship. But I remember the year before, I did not start Jerome Ford, and Jerome Ford had a good matchup. And then Jerome Ford outscored Devontae Smith by like 20, which would have been enough for me to win the title. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm starting Jerome Ford over Smitty. And then Smitty was the one who popped off in the championship last year. And I didn't play him. It wouldn't have been enough. Aaron Rodgers put up a zero piece. It was against the Bills when the Bills had one of the best, had just given up like 50 points in back-to-back weeks. I was just like, all right, Aaron Rodgers, go out there and win for the Jets. And that also pretty much affected Brees or Hall too. And Brees Hall put up like nothing in the championship. Yeah, Levi, led by T. Higgins and Jonathan Taylor, had an epic championship where he went from worst to first, winning the title. And then Mark pretty comfortably beat Ryan in the third place matchup, 160 to 135. Yeah, my projection, I was 40 points under my projection after being favored to win it by 15. And then the year before, I was favored to beat Chaz by one. So this year, I think Stun's the favorite to win, but in our matchup, I've lost the last two championships. I think Stun's going to beat me again to make sure I lose my third straight championship, which I mean, at that point, it's just kind of laughable of like losing that many in a row. Um, so we'll see. We'll see if I end up beating Stun. Stun and I do have a matchup bet going on. We are not betting a chicken sandwich or a beer from second best this time. I'm reusing the bet I made with Levi last year in the championship. So something I've always liked to do is whenever I've won a fantasy title, I like to buy a jersey of the best player on my team. It's just not something I've kind of always done. Like who was the like reason why I won that title. And last year I had to buy Levi a T. Higgins jersey because T. Higgins was the highest scoring player on his team. This year I'm making that same bet with Stun. Loser has to buy the winner a jersey and of whoever the highest scoring player is in the championship. So should be a fun matchup. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully this is the year I can finally get over my championship demons and get out a win. And if I don't, I don't. So be it. But thank you all for listening to the GDFL podcast. We'll be coming back next week with a championship recap, and then maybe a look at what this podcast could look like in the off season. I know Levi has had some ideas of shows he'd want to do in the off season, so we shall see. With that, best of luck to Stun in the championship. Best of luck to Sokol and Mark in the third, fourth matchup. Oh, something that I didn't mention, I want to mention. Ryan finished fourth 3 years in a row. So good enough to make the playoffs, not good enough to win money any of those years. Kind of is whatever. Anywho, yeah, best of luck to everyone in the playoffs this week. Love you all. Hope you all have some great holidays, and you'll be hearing from me next week. I will talk to you all later.